One of the most enigmatic enemies in Darktide is the Daemonhost. Is this just one Daemonhost we keep encountering over and over, or have many of them been created by whomever their master is? Why are they all just sitting there? Also, I thought that Daemonhosts probably would have been tougher than this too. If you've been introduced to 40k through Darktide, or just have never heard much about Daemonhosts before, you may not know the dark, sinister ritual necessary to create these bound entities of the warp, or what their presence implies. Today I'll tell you all about how Daemonhosts are made, who typically is responsible for creating them, and also why Darktide's Daemonhosts have everything to do with what Rodin's body is being used for at the end of the Dark Communion mission. Obey my cat! Hit the subscribe button. There's a lot of different types of demons in 40k. Lesser demons, greater demons, demon princes, cases of demonic possession, and then of course you have your demon host. So what is a demon host?
Hi, welcome to Chili's.
No, not like that. A demon host may seem a lot like just a simple case of demonic possession at face value, but the truth is a lot worse and far more fucked up. Demon hosts are in a sense a demon of the warp given physical form in the real world by ritualistically tormenting and sacrificing a living person to act as a vessel for the evil spirit. In Warhammer 40k, there's two separate dimensions of reality: the physical real world our characters exist in, and the warp. The warp is a completely non-physical plane of existence where only psychic energy exists, so the chaos gods and demons, by virtue of being born from and living in the warp, actually have no physical form. I know that probably sounds bonkers yonkers if you're new to 40k, because it sure as shit seems pretty real when a beast of Nurgle shoves you down its gullet, but it technically is just really powerful psychic energy. That's why it fades from existence after you kill it. It's a demon and it's being expelled from the physical plane and banished back to the Shadow Realm. If you're new to Warhammer, this might also be a good time to mention that 40k doesn't make the most sense, but don't think about it too hard because it's really cool and that's what matters. Okay, so back to the demon house. Since demons don't truly have a physical form, they can't just suddenly show up for no reason or hang out indefinitely in the real world. Most of the time when demons do drop in on real space, it's because there's something like a warp rift present radiating psychic energy out from it, or incredibly powerful psykers opening portals and pulling them in, but that's not how demon hosts are created. The Inquisition requires me to inform you that this section is for educational and demonstrative purposes only. Do not attempt to create your own demon host. Anyway, here's what you would need if you were going to create a demon host: a pen, or scalpel, whichever you prefer. The full and complete name of a demon. An unholy tome so befouled with forbidden knowledge you feel the unclosing eyes of both Chaos and the Emperor upon you when you hold it. Some salt. Blood that no one will ask where you got it from. A hyperfixation topic that you are insufferably pedantic about and can talk about forever. A good friend. Or someone you don't actually like and you've made them think that you're their friend. Or someone you've kidnapped and they didn't agree to this at all. That last one is actually the best. Purity seals, chains, or at the very least some duct tape. And of course, most importantly, a complete disregard for morals, ethics, and human life. Alright, so the first thing you're gonna want to do is take your friend, acquaintance friend, open your scary ass book to the page that covers words of binding, and then start writing those on this person. If you chose the pen instead of a scalpel from the materials list, make sure you don't smudge the ink at all, because that will become a problem when you get to the actual summoning. Choosing the scalpel is the pro move here because you don't have to worry about making sure your ink stays pristine. Also, carving the words into the flesh of your acquaintance friend is painful for them and their suffering feeds the dark gods. So now just make sure you're getting those grotesque scripts exactly as they appear on the page and you'll be good to go. Once you've finished that step, now you'll want to apply purity seals to your victim volunteer and also bind them with some heavy chains. If you weren't able to sanctify your own chains made from the purest of steel at home, that's okay, duct tape is probably fine. Now expect these steps to take at minimum an entire day to finish. Don't rush it. Making a single mistake will likely result in the summoned demon breaking your hold over it, then turning your skin inside out and handing your own intestines to you. Confidence is key, and you'll need that confidence because now it's time to summon the demon from the realms of hell. The actual ritual itself and the incantations you'll need to use will differ depending on the demon you seek to manifest, so make sure to follow the instructions outlined in your dark book to the letter. You may feel your eyes start to boil when gazing too long upon its fetid pages. That's part of how you'll know it's working. If you've done the ritual and incantation correctly, you'll start to feel the oppressing presence of the demon itself split into your mind, and you'll have to defeat it in a psychic battle of wills to assert your metaphysical dominance over it. This is where your hyperfixation comes in. Exhaust the demon by mentally ranting about your specific weird passion. There are a few mainstays that almost always work here, like explaining the plot of your favorite anime or trying to get the demon to play a game of Settlers of Catan with you. When the demon gets desperate enough, it will try to get away from you by seeking refuge inside of the person you've prepared to host it. You'll see a blinding flash of light, hear a deafening crack, and there'll be a lingering scent somewhat similar to bleach. Congratulations! You've successfully summoned a demon of the warp and bound it into a human body, making yourself its master and allowing it to remain indefinitely in the physical world against its will. Being completely glib aside, those are more or less the steps one has to take when it comes to summoning and creating a demon host. One of the most important elements of the summoning is the actual human the demon will be bound inside of. Most humans in the 40k universe have psychic energy inside of them because of their soul. Souls are actually pieces of warp energy contained inside the physical body, so those shards of the warp can exist in real space as long as the person is alive. It's their souls that allow demons to even be able to perceive humans at all, and it's necessary that a human that will be used to host a demon have one because the demon needs it to snack on or whatever while it's bound inside of the mortal body. So no blanks, which are humans that don't have souls. Depending on the situation, the human host can be a willing participant, like a member of a powerful chaos cult who's willing to sacrifice themselves to further their goals, but a lot of demon hosts are made from people who are unwilling victims. This person, willing or unwilling, undergoes a preparation to become a vessel for a demon to be summoned into. Most of this preparation is inscribing the ritual words of binding onto the person so that the demon stays locked in if it's successfully bound into them. This can be done with simple ink on skin, but I wasn't making a joke before when I said if you smudge it, the consequences will be dire. Making any small mistake means that the strength of binding keeping the demon at bay will be weaker, meaning the demon is at greater risk of breaking out of its bindings and killing anyone in its path. So it's much safer to spend more time tattooing or even carving the words and sigils into the victim's skin. Because this is such an intricate and important part of the process, it's very time intensive, usually taking at minimum a full day. When it comes time to perform the actual summoning, the summoner must encircle the host human with salt, blood, your usual ritualistic materials for sanctified circles of protection. The summoner will then begin their ritual chants, invoking the name of the targeted demon to bring it into real space. When the demon arrives, the summoner must impose their will on the demon to overpower it and command it into the victim's body. If they succeed, the demon goes into the body of the victim host, and their physical form often twists and mutates to express the qualities of the demon that is now inside of them. Once bound, the demon can remain in real space indefinitely because it is contained inside a human body and it consumes the soul of the victim, instead of a simple possession where the demon is temporarily inside of the person's body along with their soul and they cohabitate. When a human becomes a vessel for a demon host, that person effectively dies and their soul is lost. The demon host is now compelled to follow the orders of its master with varying degrees of success depending on how strong the demon is, how precise the summoner was with performing the ritual correctly, and also how specific the summoner is with their instructions to the demon when they give it orders. There's typically two different main camps someone who tries to summon a demon host falls into: a powerful chaos cult like Admonition, and radical inquisitors. Inquisitors that participate in this dire ritual are often from the Ordo Malleus, and one of the main motivators for an inquisitor to summon a demon host is to gain knowledge. Because demons are literal beings of the warp and an actual manifestation of part of their chaos god, they have a wealth of knowledge about chaos and secrets otherwise nearly impossible to learn by any mortal. That being said, the way that demon hosts are presented to us in Darktide makes it clear that these have been created by the Cult of Admonition. The grimoires found across the maps may actually be the dark tomes where the cult has gained their knowledge of how to perform the ritual to summon specific demons of Nurgle. There's a lot going on with the demon hosts that demonstrate Admonition was their creators, but if you're not paying close attention, it's actually all pretty easy to miss and just lumping in as generic enemy stuff. The demon hosts we encounter in Darktide have been created with an unwilling human victim in the ritual. They weren't part of Admonition or seeking to further their goals. Before awakening, demon hosts can be heard pleading to themselves that what has happened can't be real, they can't have been twisted into this horrifying creature, and are begging the Emperor for protection.
I'm not wicked, I'm not. You're not real, you're not real, you're not real. Why have you forsaken me?
Given that we know now the consumption or otherwise expelling of the original human soul from the body happens when the demon is bound into the victim, these are probably the echoes of the last words of the person whose body was used before the ritual was complete. Another big clue that it was Admonition behind the summoning of the demon hosts is the fact that they're being used as weapons. When bound, the summoner becomes the demon's master and it will follow their directions. It seems pretty unlikely that Grendel would create a demon host and direct its purpose to be to attack members of his own warband while simultaneously directing the demon to leave Scab Mobian's 6 enemies and drag cultist members alone. But this does bring up the fair question of why exactly was the demon host summoned and how many are there? Fatshark actually just answered one of these questions recently through a new change to Havoc. If you weren't sure that there was more than one demon host and it just is the same one that keeps coming back over and over, we can now rest assured it's intended that there are many of them because Fatshark just announced the Heinous Rituals mutator for Havoc Mode. In Havoc levels affected by this mutator, you will find Admonition psykers in the process of creating more demon hosts and will need to stop them before they finish the ritual. This also kind of makes my thesis on the purpose of demon hosts in Darktide a little sticky, but I'd finished writing this before they announced the Havoc update, so fuck it. We ball. The question of why Admonition is creating demon hosts is a very interesting one. Heretical cults will summon demon hosts to do any number of things, and certainly among those is to rip apart the enemies of the cult and do their dirty work for them. However, the actual demon itself that is summoned and used for creating a demon host is usually one of considerable power. Think along the lines of a herald, a demon prince, or even a greater demon. Cults generally summon a demon host as a form of worship for their chaos god, or to open a door and allow a powerful demon they formed an alliance with to walk in the mortal plane. This seems pretty unlikely to be the express reason why the demon hosts we see in Darktide were created. They kind of just curl up in the fetal position and pretend to be pathetic lost souls until you get close enough and it springs its trap on your strike team. That would be a considerable waste of a greater demon, and there's no way that we're slapping around a demon prince or even a herald on the regular. These demon hosts, these ones that we fight in Darktide, these ones were the practice demons. You didn't think you were getting out of this video without a classic Joe theory, did you? Remember how Admonition had rodents strung up on the symbol of Chaos Undivided, also called the Octad, in the Dark Communion mission? The ritual chant in that mission ends with what is pretty clearly a command to manifest a demon.
Kill that target out! Scab shotgunner!
4 very large vats of the admonition green goo TM that we've seen used to corrupt and mutate other victims of their plots are also presumably being fed into Rodin's body somehow. Now, there's only one kind of great one where Nurgle is concerned, and that's Nurgle's greater demon called a Great Unclean One. Ever since the Dark Communion came out, I've gone back and forth on exactly what I think is happening here to summon a Great Unclean One itself, whether it's a demon host or if admonition is doing some other kind of ritual. At first, I didn't think we were hearing a demon host summoning ritual for 2 very specific reasons. First, we never hear the actual name of a specific demon get invoked. I wouldn't expect it to be one of the big Nurgle brand names like Hugath, but presumably if this was the ritual for summoning a Great Unclean One into Rodin's body as a demon host, we should hear some kind of proper name. But we also can't be sure what rites and rituals happened in Messalina Vengeance before our strike team arrives, so maybe that had already been done. The other reason I didn't like the demon host ritual angle is that, as we learned earlier, the mortal body host has to be a living person for a demon to be bound inside it, because the demon requires a mortal soul to consume. Rodin is definitely dead. He did not receive the same life-saving or resurrecting surgery that Rinda was treated to, and Rinda's personal journal entry confirms that Rodin is dead and she wants to avenge his death. So his soul is gonzo, back to the warp with the bye Felicia. They can't be using Rodin's body to make a demon host out of him because that vital component is missing. But here's where things get interesting. In the cinematic after you beat the mission, Rodin has a green substance shoot out of his body and fly out of the church window. I always interpreted this as the soul or entity of whatever the mysterious voice was trying to summon leaving his body and returning to the warp because the ritual is interrupted. But Fatshark says differently. Fatshark VFX artist Felicia says that it's actually Rodin's soul that we see leaving his body. But he's been dead for long enough that I'd expect his soul would have already returned to the warp. What up with that? There's a couple of possibilities. The first is that Rodin and Rinda have both been infected with Nurgle's diseases, we know that much, and the main disease that we see throughout Darktide is the walking pox. The walking pox specifically kills its mortal victims, but because it's a heinous disease of the chaos god of pestilence, this particular disease traps the mortal soul inside of their body. When their dead body reanimates as a zombie-like creature, the mortal soul inside is still aware of everything their shambling corpse is doing, but can't affect it at all. All they can do is observe in horror and despair. If Rodin was infected with the walking pox, it could be possible that his soul was still trapped inside of his body after death, but he also never reanimates as far as we're aware, so maybe not. However, don't forget that the admonition green goo TM is involved in this ritual for some reason, and that's an interesting detail. Since the color of the soul we see fly out of Rodin's body is also the same bright green color as the goo, it could be possible that it's been used on his dead body to perhaps keep him from reanimating but also not have his soul leave his body, or some kind of spiritual conductor or lubricant to help slide a demon in there. Enjoy that visual. Going back to earlier in the video, we learned that the ritual for creating a demon host is very finicky. You have to be precise, and the more powerful the demon is that you're trying to summon, the more careful to not make a single mistake you have to be. Since a Great Unclean One is as powerful as you can get when it comes to Nurgle demons, and summoning this demon is probably more in line with being a form of worship or fulfilling Admonition's ultimate goals, the person performing the ritual in the cult would want to be very confident that they're going to get this right. The mysterious voice says several times throughout the Dark Communion that this ritual is of the utmost importance.
They must not imperil the right. 'Tis prophecy. 'Tis foretold.
And if the stakes are that high, it makes perfect sense that Admonition would want to do some practice runs to make sure that they have the ritual exactly perfectly right, with some form of lower level or lesser demons that won't cause a catastrophe if it were to fail, especially if an experimental element that only they understand, like the green goo, is required somewhere in the mix. So yeah, that's why the demon hosts exist and why we're able to put them down with relative ease. They're the results of the practice runs that Admonition did to prepare for their main event. These demon hosts most likely specifically have the souls of plague bearers inside of them, because while they're still formidable, even a single member of our strike team can be capable of taking one down, and that's just not on the level with something you'd expect from a more favored demon of Nurgle like a Herald. If these demon hosts were part of the practice batches that were pretty much disposable, the summoner within Admonition probably just shrugged and decided to not waste a perfectly good demon host and set them loose within Tertium to spread further disease, chaos, and confusion, leaving them to wander the Hive City and wait until anyone foolish enough to disturb their peace stumbles upon them. Want to come poke a demon host with me? Drop by a stream and play a mission with me, or join the Patreon, YouTube channel members, or subscribe to me on Twitch and be in the loop on when I'll be playing Darktide to capture footage for these videos. You might even see your character in a future one. Thanks for watching, and until next time, just hold on for March 25th when the Nightmares and Visions update comes. I'll see you out there against the Darktide. A huge thank you to these amazing people for helping support my channel and keeping me going. Leah S., Andrew Brown, Cameron, Ben, the Thunder Guardian, Nicholas Villardez, John Brash, the Communist Crusader, Macrove, Big Guy, Daniel Gerber, and Nurgle Luxes. Thank you so much to all my supporters so much. Seriously, I couldn't keep doing this without you guys.